So we're going to go through the results, investigating what are the top decks, because the set 6 has been released since over 2 weeks now, of course the set released and the CCS was right after, so all the teams, all the big ladder constructed farmer, so to speak, they were not playing in the ladder. They didn't want to share the technology with others. They wanted to keep it tied to the vest and make sure that no one knew what they were coming with, to keep as much advantage as they could, because obviously there's a cash prize, so you don't want to share your technology before you enter a tournament, right? But now we know, and these results will shape constructed for the upcoming weeks. And in recent event, we've had 3 significant tournaments in constructed that started to show a trend. And now we have the results of the first day 1 of CCS. Day 2 is limited, so I'm not really interested today. We're going to dive deep in, we're going to dive in constructed, not in limited. But results, hopefully it would be great to know who won the CCS, right? So this is what we're going to do tonight. It will be a very interesting stream. And for those who are watching on YouTube, then you missed the stream, but you're watching on YouTube, so I like you. Alright, so first thing here would be to pop the stream note. And first, to view these results, one thing that is really cool is that we've got here a website that is X Tournaments, or xpvptools.net. And what you'll find on that website is a ton of information for constructed and for limited. What we're going to use today is the history of tournaments, because we want to go and look at the decks that were played, and we'll want to look at the matchups, how things went, and the overall statistics on the tournament. And the website provides all of that, and that's really cool, and it provides it in a very neat way. Fred, who's working on the website here, is doing a fantastic job with the website, and I highly recommend anyone interested in constructed to keep this window open at all time. Like, really at all time. Hey, hi there, FRS19 and Stupid Idiot. Welcome back to the stream. We're just starting right now. So yeah, this website is super cool. So there's 2 use of it that I do, and most competitive constructed players do, is that first here you have the constructed ladder history. So every time you do a match, if you want to know the deck list of your opponent, right after the match you just come here, you refresh, you find the right pairing of champions with the right timeline, and you click on it, and then you can have both lists, right? And you also have access to the reserves, so you can know who you played against and what kind of deck they were running, and their reserves option. It gives you a lot of information, so that's really useful on the ladder. If you get beaten, for instance, and you want to know what was the opposing deck, right? There's websites like XTCG browsers that does the tracking, but this one is clearly like it's like 2 minutes, 1 minute delay. So you just hop on there, you look at it, you can save the link, and these are permanent links, so you just save the link. You have a unique ID for the match, and you can just have your history of matches there. The other use that you want to be, and this is what we're going to use tonight, is that there's a scheduled constructed tournament history here. So you can see all past tournament with the dates. What's really interesting for us is the Cosmic Crown Showdown. And we're also going to deepen with the 5-shard weekly a bit after, to see how impactful it was. Beforehand, I want to say that I'm part of Rated X, as you can see here, and we did have 2 members, Infamous Neo and P Sinker, that made it to the CCS. So we've been working 2 weeks straight on decks for the CCS, and one of our early assumption was that it would be an arms race to find the best blood-based deck, and and the other assumption was that there would be a decent amount of Dreadlings around. So this is where we started, and of course, Bright of the Dam, extremely strong card, and there are the right enablers in the set that makes it very, very good right now. But we'll see the results. So basically, we really oriented towards our testing towards blood, and as you will see with the results, blood was everywhere. Like I think it was an easy conclusion to come to after the full set was revealed, that blood was in an extremely good place, and we'll just review how much of a good place it is. So without further ado, let's go down here and see the results. So if it's the first time you see these screens here from X tournaments, you have the information about the number of players, the rounds, and everything. Then you have the final ranks with some of the names. Now, usually the names are anonymized, but since it's the Cosmic Round Showdown, they did post ranking and names. So Fred was able to adjust the names here, but as you see later down the road here, we don't really have names, but the first few positions we do, and that's great. Next, if you go on the bottom, you have a lot of cool information about statistics, about the cards and the champions that were used and the shards. So one thing that we'll note straight up, if we look at the top 8 here, you will see that Blood Wild, Blood Wild, Blood Wild, Blood Diamond Sapphire, Blood Sapphire, Diamond Ruby. That's a ton of blood decks here. And what's really cool is that we have Blood and Wild with Kagulichu, we have Blood and other shards with Yuzu, and we have Mono Blood with Blood Spinner Zorat. And we have a lone Ruby Diamond here, Valor deck, Ardent Human Valor deck. So, and as you look, just quick glance here, we see that there's a metric ton of blood decks. So, how far did blood decks go going into the tournament? So, this is something here that we can go with by shard, right? If we just look at the shards in terms of decks, you see that out of the 130, 35 were Blood Wild, 11 Ruby Sapphire, 8 Diamond Ruby, 8 Blood Sapphire, Sapphire Wild, and when you go down the road with the multiple Blood Diamond Sapphire, here there were 4, and Diamond Ruby that we saw, where's Diamond Ruby? Diamond Ruby there were 8. So a crushing amount of the field here was Blood Wild, and most of these Blood Wild were Kagulichu, and somewhere Blood Spinners are at. So when we look at the champion here to see what proportion of the champions here, you see 31 Kagulichu, 35 Blood Wild. So the 4 Blood Wild that were not playing Kagulichu were essentially playing Blood Spinners are at. We see 21 Marshal Josefina, so most of the diamond base decks here are Marshal Josefina's deck, and 12 Membumbus, that's a decent amount, and 11 Yuzu the Bone Walker. This is fairly new. We did not see a lot of Yuzu champion in a passing constructed competitive. I think we didn't see them at all, besides some odd appearances here and there with one deck, but this here is a significant portion of the field, right? And it's really cool to see here. Looking at the games, matches won here. Again, if we look at the number of matches played, Uzu comes third, and the reason being that a lot of people, they just drop after they have a few losses early in the tournament. So number of decks just gives you an idea of what was the field, and we see that Kagulichu, if we just look at the decks here, Kagulichu, Josefina, McBumbus, Yuzu is 4th, and then Ivan, Slackbot, with Sapphire Wild. When we look here, Sapphire Wild is 7th, so it's a good distribution of decks here, but let's see. So when we look at the number of matches that were played, we see that Kagulichu remains the top, Josephina remains the 2nd, but Yuzu comes 3rd, above McBumbus. So really, you know, matches won here really tells the tale. And when we look at the winning percentage of decks, we see that actually the Yuzu decks were the most successful. The Yuzu champions were the most successful of the tournament, and they're above Shoku and they're above Bloodspinner's Sarat. Not by much, mind you, but they are above. So this is really interesting. That line here is a big deal. We've got a brand new format with brand new cards. It's the first time that we have a rotation, and all of a sudden, Yuzu comes out of the gate and is present in the top 8 twice, and is the most successful champion of the tournament. This is very serious. We'll look into deeper as to why in a minute. But I find this very cool that a champion that was barely even played in fun decks all of a sudden is very competitive, at least for this tournament. It doesn't mean that in the upcoming tournaments it will still be competitive, because people will react to this meta. This was a very free, open meta where not a lot of things were known in the upcoming days and weeks. Now we have a baseline. Now we know what works, we know what doesn't. And people will be making decks to beat these decks that were successful in the CCS. And this is what you will be seeing in the ladder for the most part. So paying attention to what happened here, very important. We've also got Ada the Apparitionist. Although there were only 2 decks, they played 10 matches and were decently successful, but they didn't really come close to the top here. The other one that I really wanted to look at is Ivan Slackbot. This was the Dreadling deck, Sapphire Wild for the most part. There were a few other decks in there. There were Blood Ruby decks. So it's not all Sapphire Wild Dreadling deck, but seeing them at 50.8% means that they're still pretty decent, with a decent number of matches played here. As you can hear, I have a daughter and she's waking up, so I'm going to be back in a second, and just going to be back, guys. Won't be long. Hey, I'm back. It seems that she didn't want to sleep tonight, so she looking at the camera, she looks like hell, but she's adorable. We'll see if she decides to be quiet or not. All right, guys. Where were we? Let me catch up with the baby aggro. Yep, that's baby aggro right there. All right. You wanna sleep on me? I'll try something. Up. Let's try something. Don't know if this will work, but we can try. there's a lot of things to be curious about right now. Alright. Let's try it like that. We'll see if that works. I have a feeling that this stream is going to be harder than I thought it would be. Alright, so what we had here, or what we were discussing, is that most of these champions here, what I like to see is that we see champions that were not used before that did really well in the tournament, and we're also seeing some of the new champions that were just introduced with the patch, with the new set. So that's pretty cool. For the coach to sing along. Howard, you don't really want me to sing, but I do, you know, alphabet and counting very well, and you'd be surprised at how quickly they pick things up. My boy, he cannot speak yet, but he can count, and he knows the alphabet, so that's one for the team. Alright, so yeah, but these champions really cool. We even had one Blue Sparrow champion in there, but really seeing that the Sapphire Wild, well, mostly the Sapphire Wild Dreadlane decks made 50% is kind of cool. I mean, there's something there. They're higher variants than the other decks, but on the other hand, I mean, these are the early versions, and we didn't know what we were fighting against. Now we know. So this will be very cool in the future to see how these decks adapt, because they pack a ton of punch and they attack on a very wide angle. And these control deck with the with the, you know, 1-to-1 remove-all ratio doesn't do really well with going wide. So I'm pretty sure that we'll see these decks continue being part of the meta and adjusting to, you know, against the more heavy blood decks, which is really cool results here. But again, what's really surprising, Uzu the Bonewalker, the most successful deck of the tournament. Very cool. And what I didn't check here is match 1 percentage on the shards combination, and we see that there's 4 deck here. Blood Diamond Sapphire, that was at 71.9%. Okay, we don't want to sleep. Alright. It appears that we don't want to sleep. Bit of a remnants of a cold. You want to play with Reaper. Alright, so this is pretty cool. I mean, very surprising results. We see that the 3 diamond decks were at 78%, but none make top 8. Not a lot of deck, but games, you know, matches is pretty decent here. I'd be curious to see what are the mono diamond lists that we're running, because they ran hot, but they all, you know, likely they won a good percentage and then dropped. I don't know what happened there, but that one is cool. But then it's here. We see that the Kagulichu here, well, it was, you know, the most popular champion of the list, and 52%. Likely a big part of it is the fact that there were a lot of players on it, and a lot of these players didn't make top 8, so more or less what's happening. But really the Yuzu build with the seeing a 3 shard combination deck here at 71% with 32 matches, that's very significant, and 60 you know, 76 games here. That's pretty cool, and this is out of 4 decks. This is not a lot of decks. These overperformed in the tournament, and they were likely all user decks. And we've got 2 or 3 very close to the top 8, and 1 in the top 8. So that goes to tell you that this was a breakout deck of the tournament. You want to speak now? And yeah, this is pretty cool here. And of course, we need to pay attention to the decks in the top 8, right? This doesn't paint the whole story, but it gives us a kind of a high level guidelines on what happened in the tournament. The next one that I really love here is looking at, and right now we're looking at the whole field, right? Looking at the cards, which card, the cards that were most played in the tournament. Hero Fall, 469 matches. Gemborn Prowler, Strangle, Cheap Shot, Withering Gaze, Necropolis Karn, Exarch of the Egg, Underworld Crusader. Like, these go into blood. This is the blood base of the tournament, right? And you see, most played cards, they're all blood. Like, top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, top 8 cards are all blood cards. And even the 9 card, Well of Ancient, is a blood card in itself. Rune Area Offense is often played with blood. It goes into Kagulichu, Pavyazukan, Kagulichu, Cottontail Explorer, Kagulichu, Lilypad Kagulichu. But Kagulichu was the most popular deck in the tournament, so seeing these wild and blood cards here at the top does make a bit sense. Does make some amount of sense, but what you really want to pay attention here is that it was blood first by a landslide. Looking at match 1 percentage here for cards over the whole tournament, we'll try to see number of cards, right? I don't think that's a good metric. So if you want to drill down here, we can go 8 win. They were it goes with the champion in chart. So here that doesn't work. I guess we're going to have to take a break. 7 wins. Kagulichu, 3 Kagulichu, 1 Huzu, 1 Bloodspinner Surat. And 6 wins. The 4 Huzu Bonewalker, 2 Blood Diamond Sapphire Wild, Blood Sapphire Wild, and Blood Sapphire. Alright. There's a lot of cool information there. You want this? Okay. Very cool. So, but we're still seeing, like, with 6 wins, what I wanted to see is number of matches. Gemborn Prowler, Cheap Shot, Withering Gaze, Hero Fall, Necropolis Con, Strangle. This is the same list, so you see it's not just that there were an overwhelming number of blood decks. The decks that were successful were of overwhelmingly an overwhelming proportion towards blood. So blood really came out extremely strong for the tournament here, and this is what we're seeing right now looking at the cards. Now, what's of course what we want to see is deck list, right? What were the lists that won the tournament and what kind of cards they were running. So we'll start with the first one, Ali Eldrazi. Looking at his configuration, we can see that this was a control deck, Kagulichu as a champion. First thing we see in the list is Horrors of War. Very uncommon card. It's not something we're seeing in latter season. Very strong. More or less board wipe and also discard. But what's really important is that it is a symmetrical card, so it affects you as much as it affects the opponent. So you'll be discarding 8 X cards, you'll be sacrificing X amount of troops, and you'll be losing X amount of resources. What breaks the synergy, and usually when you play cards like that, you want to break the synergy, the symmetry, right? You don't want the Horrors of War to be affecting you to the same degree as they're affecting your opponent, because if you do that, then your opponent gets a turn and they have an advantage over you. Now, the way they break the synergy here is by playing Zoroastrian. Yes? You want to speak? Okay. So, Zoroastrian here, very, feels like an unassuming card, but it's a 2-cost constant. and it has a secondable major and it reads 3 cost at basic speed. Summon a Dreadling, it gets all seconded powers of this. And the way you break the symmetry of Ores of War is that you put the cultivation gem into the Surratt's Trajectory. What happens is that you pay 3, you create a Dreadling, the Dreadling it has speed, naturally, and it attacks, and when it attacks you gain 1 temporary and 1 permanent resource. So as long as you're not under pressure, you can just use your resources to create Dreadlings that will ramp your resources, your permanent and temporary resources. And what's great is that, you know, as soon as you have 6 resources, you can pump 2 a turn. And as soon as you have 9, you can pump 3 a turn. And as soon as you can pump 3 a turn, you can do 1 more the next turn, and then 1 more the next turn. And all of a sudden, 2 turns later, you're doing like 6 Dreadlings. It's an exponential curve. So at some point, there's so many, and you're just growing. And just with that, this card without anything else can win. Alright, now you're going to go on the other side here, and we're going to try to sleep. And this is really what breaks the symmetry of Ores of War. And you can see they're running 4, so this is clearly the plan is to ramp a bunch of resources. They're even playing tilling the soil to ramp even more, and this is a cantrip later in the game, because you're creating Dreadlings anyway, so you have plenty of troops in the crypt. You really don't mind playing a Scrounge here. And thanks for the follow here, appreciate it, welcome to the team. Alright, so clearly this was the plan. And we see the Explorer making sure that they have their, you know, shard drop every single turn. For the removal, we see we have Heroes of War, Hours of War as a board wipe / discard board reset engine. We've got a full set of Strangle, a full set of Hero Fall, even playing 2 piles of Yazukan that, you know, if you have access to a lot of troops in your crypt, these are essentially destroy any permanent on the board. Whatever problem, this solves any problem that you have, basically. As long as it's not spell shielded, it will solve any problem. And the way that this deck works, you know, the big payoff card are the Rotpa gangs. And Rotpa gang is a 6/6/4/6, and it has an ability to sacrifice another troop. Keep in mind, this is quick, and this can be done any time during the game. And you're creating a ton of Dreadlings, so you don't mind. And the troops that you're sacrificing, it's to give this one either flight or life drain, and you can have both at the same time. You really don't want to sleep tonight. You really don't want to sleep, do you? Alright, and this is how the game goes. You know, tons of removal, board wipe, ramp, and the big payout card that when it's in the crypt, you can bring it back into your hand. So it's a recurring threat, and it just becomes better and better and better. So it's really hard to deal with. So when you're fighting this deck, you need to be managing the ramp, but it's really hard. And they can fall behind while ramping. That's not a problem, because they will just play Hours of War, make you sacrifice 3 troops, 2 to 4 troops, and discard your whole hand and lose a lot of your resources, while they still have 3-4 resources remaining. And at that point, you just lost the game if they just resolve one of these Hours of War, because it will not be making them remove the Surratt's Trajectory, so they can just continue to ramp right away. And even if they go down to 2 and they don't have the Rectory in play, Rectory just costs 2. That's very small cost that they have to pay for it. Really cool deck here. Lots of thoughts into it. Another thing that I really like, and you'll see that this will be a theme here amongst the top decks, we're running 8 coins, like all the coins you can get. This is free card draw on no smashing the spacebar, please. This is a lot of card draw, a ton of card draw here with the coins. Very important in the match. In the control, we've seen a lot of blood-based deck. There's a lot of control around. There's a lot of removal. It's all about finding your key pieces and making sure that you're having success with them. And having 8 coins here really makes a difference. And I can't stress this enough. Like, this is a very high resource base as well. From the look of it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 10 basics here, and then 4, 8, 12, 16. So that's 26 resources in the shard base. That's a lot of resources, but you know, out of 26, about a third of these resources, they draw a card and do something great for the deck. They put something in a crypt. They could put Rotpargan in the crypt, or they just could fill the crypt with troops. Also, keep in mind that we're playing Kagulichu, so we're going to draw something from our crypt. And, you know, we're playing Lackey that draws a card when it dies, so you don't mind sacrificing it to Auroras of War. That's also pretty great. And you don't mind to chump block with it early in the game. So there's a ton of card draw in the deck. It doesn't appear that it has a lot of card draw, but, you know, Tilting Stars is card draw. Lackey is card draw, so that's not card draw early, but you can play it later and it's card draw. It doesn't need much. And there's 8 coins here. That's a ton of card draw. So this deck has a lot of fuel. And it's very low cost fuel. Well, no wonder this deck came out on top, right? Very impressive list. And the guys from I don't know if they have a name, so I'm just going to name them Team Jeff Ruglin for now. This is what they came up with, and a very strong list. This is the only member of the team that made top 8, but no, you're not eating wires. That's not healthy, and it's very dangerous. Alright guys, I don't think I'll be able to stream a whole lot tonight. Not until this one is up for sleep. So we'll see if we can review. We continue to review the top 8 decks, but we may have to end this earlier than I expected it to be. It's just using, like, you know, we have access to a ton of ramp. Auroras of War is good with ramp. We just got a very good removal on top of the extremely good removal that we have, and we have a recurring, you know, threat. So it's very cool deck. A lot of thoughts and efforts were put into it, and you see here it shows. Really cool list. From the reserve, this is, you know, the reserves really tell you, you know, what they were expecting when they prepared the deck. So 3 Misery and 2 cheap shots. So a lot of 1 defense troop, like from the aggressive Ruby decks, and a lot of the key troops in the Sapphire Wild Dreadling decks as well have 1 defense. Yes? You're not happy? Okay. Withering Gaze for the control and most of the blood matchups. Very important. Jambon Prowler, they were expecting a decent amount of Sagaded troops. Champazar to eat constant. There's a ton of constants now that are constructed playable. Darkheart, because it's just a very strong piece of, you know, card advantage that would just dominate the game. And Walls of the Dam, if they, you know, if they need another board wipe against decks that go wider than, you know, 3-4 troops, that becomes hard to get with Auroras of War. Then they have a Walls of the Dam. But this is a deck that can consistently go up to, you know, 6 resources on turn, 6-7 resources on turn 5-ish. So, you know, Rotpargan, and they don't, the fact that Rotpargan goes to the crypt and it goes back to the hand, you don't care if it's removed by Hero Fall. You just get it back later in the game, and that's not a big deal at all. So very cool list, a lot of redundancy, and no wonder that it performed very well with Ali. Ali, a master of, you know, control / combo decks. No wonder he's at the top with a list like that as well. So one of the strongest control player that we have in the community, with an extremely cool, very efficient, very redundant control deck with all the best removal and all the best ramp. So yep, no wonder this deck came out on the top. Very cool list here. And if you're interested, you can see look at all the matchups that he won during the tournament. This also tells you a good tale of what's happening. No. You should be sleeping in an hour. You should really be sleeping. Yeah. You know what, guys? We're going to take a 10-minute break. So let me just this, and we're going to continue the review, but I really need to make this girl sleep, because it's going to take us 8 hours to just complete the the review tonight if I keep her on my lifeline deck. So alright, so guys, I'll be back in 10 minutes. So it's 8:23. I'll be back around 8:30, and really need to make her sleep now. Back around 8:30 in yeah, it's 7 minutes. 7 minutes should be okay. So I'm going to put this little girl to sleep, and I'll be back. Alright, guys, be patient with me tonight. We're going to speak very soft now. Very, very soft. Let's see. I gotta say, like, when you have very young children, every night is like fighting a raid boss. I think we just put the raid boss to sleep, but we're going to hope that there's no more interruptions. Alright, guys. Be patient. Be patient. Very, very teeny small tables. You're not allowed to flip any tables if it makes a loud noise. That's just not allowed right now. Big noises are not allowed right now, because the room for the babies is just above me right now. So if I speak too loud, I'm just going to wake them up. All right. Last thought I had on the on Ali and Drazi as list is that to look at the matchups, right? So he fought Dreaming Fox here. This is first, yeah, this is round 1. So the early rounds we fought a Blood Sapphire control deck with Psychic Ascension and a few Reliant. Then 2-1 Ruby Diamond. Kegulichu's not really a mirror, but because these decks are very different in what they do. There's a lot of cards in common, of course, but very different list. Round 3 was Dreaming Fox again, Silver Talent Adjudicator, and all sorts of good stuff with Psychic Ascension. Kegulichu with the 2 Waltz main deck. MTG Collector is one of the top 8 participants here, so he won 2-1 against it. Okay. Making Floyd, this is one of your Yuzu player. Just splashing for Ryant here. Nothing fancy in the reserves. That's pretty much what was established. Round 7, Alex Kate, another top 8 participant. Mono Blood with a bunch of Dark Hearts. And Lost, but it was a concede to Monoblood here, Hawarian with a Monoblood Xentas Metis deck. So, hey Pudding, how are you doing tonight? Welcome back to the stream. So, very cool. I mean, if you're not familiar with the website, you should. I highly recommend doing so. Very, very cool website. So this was the first deck. The second deck is a Mono Blood deck, and actually the only loss to for Harian was to Halil Drezi. This one is a Mono Blood, very, very simple. 4 coins, a bunch of blood shards, all the best removal in the game really. Strangle, Rodcast, Erofall times 4 each. Exarch of the Egg, Vampire Prince, Princess, 2 Princesses and 2 Fentio as threats to add some, and some variants in there. Bride, of course, Bride. Zenta's Hunger, 2 draw cards, gain life. Hero Fall, 2 Gallows Cast main, and 1 Rodpa gang. So this is a Bloodspinner's Arasek. It has access to a lot of Dreadlings. Uses them with Malice, uses them with Xentan's Hunger, uses them with Gallows Cast as well. And the rest is just a bunch of removal and some amount of, lethal in the troops here, but for the most part, very standard blood deck. Nothing fancy, but very, very strong. And the reserves are what makes, blood right now extremely strong as well. Withering Gaze, Misery, Still Intel, Scroll of Yazukan, Gembon Prowler again against all the Crusaders, and there's a bunch of very good Sagetta troop right now in the game, so it makes sense to have access to a few. Vampire Queen, extremely good in a control mirror, Walls of the Dam. So nothing fancy here. The proportions are there, really, very straightforward, very linear deck. All the removal, Death Touch troop, some evasive threats and or threats that don't need to attack Infantio and Brides, and big top end finisher with Gallows Cast that can easily attack for 10 plus at the very late game, and there's a recurring threat with Rodpa Gang. So very strong, very sturdy list. You'll always have a removal in hand, and most ends, I guess with element direct removal, most hands will support 1 to 2 removal, and I'm pretty sure, top 6, 7, 8 draws, you're drawing at least 1 or 2 more removal with a list like that. So very, very, very redundant list. No wonder it did well, and the reserve choice, we'll see this as a team, right? The Gazes, the Misery, I like Still Intel. Scroll of Yazukan is also very cool in the sense that it sits on the board and it produces threats. You don't need to do anything about it, and since you're playing Bloodspinner's Rat, you know that you will have at least 1 troop a turn that will die. So pretty cool list. I love the reserves. One-off walls here against mostly Kagulichu decks that go, mid-range decks that goes wild. Withering Gazes and Still Intel against control decks, even Scroll of Yazukan as well. If you see any Crusaders, Gemmon Prowler, and things of this sort. So here we see our first brides, but they are not the last ones. Not going to go through all the matches. Here, well, the one thing I want to check is, did this list fight the 3 shard Huzu deck? Because they did extremely well. So let's see if they did well because they dodged the most, the better decks, or if they did well against them. Next stake, another top 8 participant. This might be one of the Mono Diamond deck that had a very high win percentage that didn't make top 8 here. It must be this one. We're around 6 here. Yeah, it must be this one. So Elder, Angel of Atonement, Moonrise Elder, 2 Martyred Sands, bring to Justice, Hero of Legion, Decree, Justice, Wish, 1 Daughter of the Poet, Warped Guide, 4 William Run, and Conjurer. Alright. Sure packs a punch. No Wakuna coin here. That's interesting. And a bunch of Star Sphere. Okay. And this was, yeah, later in the rounds. Okay, at the end, Resi. So second place, now on to the third place. Now we're going back to Kegulichu Blood White, but this one is very different. First thing you see is Sentry of Nozan. Very, very, you know, this is not a card I expected to see. Well, this is a powerful cost reduction that comes on turn 1. So I wouldn't say I'm surprised to see it in Constructed. I didn't think we had Kegulichu would be the shell I would see this one in. However, it does make sense. And keep in mind that it reduces the cost of sucketed troops in all zones and not sucketed cards. But this list overall, it's playing a ton of sucketed cards, right? We've got 4 Crusaders, 4 Hierophants, and 3 Dark Heart of Nozan has the sucketed cards. These lists tend to have a lot of recursion in terms of, you know, 3 Rattan Rancor. We've got a Yazukan that brings things from the crypt. We've got Rapagan that comes back from the crypt. We've got Mistress of Bone that brings things from the crypt. We've got Kegulichu that also brings things from the crypt. So this is a mid-range list that will always bring things back. That will always be a next threat, and it's going to be very, very hard to keep pace with a list like that. 3 Rattan Rancor is a lot, but you know, seeing the 4 Explorers, and we don't see any work. Again, this is a list with no coins. Very, very interesting. I would think that this list, you know, I would guess that this list could just be better with a few coins. Maybe not, you know, go as hard as Hate, as with a control list that runs a fair amount of resources, but just looking at it right now, we've got Hate here, and then 12, and then 14 plus 18, 22, 23. So this is a low amount of shards, so maybe that's why they're not running any coins, but you know, remove all the just Hero Fall and Pav Yazukan and Dark Heart and Rancor. So this is not a list that will put a lot of pressure early, but if you get a Sentry of Nozan early in the game, you could very well be playing turn 2 Crusader or Runeer. That's extremely strong play here, and if your opponent doesn't have a removal on the spot, they're going to be in a very, very tight spot. And not to mention turn 4s, Dark Heart of Nozan is there's no slash heater, so very, very cool list here with a lot of, you know, Kegulichu mid-range at its best. It's grindy, it always has a threat, it always draw cards, and no, this is a cool list. Looking at the reserves here, we see the mandatory cheap shots. Sanguine Boon is a bit weird, I'd say, because not sure what kind of match. I guess he wanted to bring this against aggro decks, just to, you know, to trade with them, get a good life swing going. But I'm a bit surprised to see Sanguine Boon in a format where you expect a lot of blood and a lot of removal, right? I'm pretty sure that if I'd have to guess, MTG Collector planned for a lot more aggro decks than, you know, blood-based control slash mid-range decks. Because if you're expecting a lot of removal, you're not playing Sanguine Boon. You're just going to get 2 for 1 a lot of the time. And quite frankly, the removal suit that the blood decks have access to right now, you just don't need Combat Trick. You can just run removal and deal with whatever was happening on the board. I love Steel Intel for even more redundancy. The 3 Prodders, again, lots of good succeeded cards right now in the format. Makes sense. Walls of the Dam makes sense. Groove Warden to deal with all of the you know, constants and artifacts. That also makes a lot of sense. Sanguine Boon here, I'm a bit curious, to be honest. I'd be curious to know the thought process behind this slot in the reserves and what kind of deck you wanted to bring in. Because if you're playing, you know, Mono Ruby Angus, for instance, you're getting cheap shot, and that's the only thing you need. 4 cheap shots. You already have a ton of removal. Well, maybe not, right? Because he's essentially trading for Strangle / Rodcast for Century of Nilzan. So I guess now, I mean, these could just be like Strangle or Rot of what's a Crackling Rot? No, that's not Crackling Rot. It's just Rot something Rot, right? He already played 2 walls and still has another sideboard. That's another interesting. Like, this tells me he expected a lot of mid-range. Like, to have 2 walls made deck means that he expected a lot of Kagulichu and a lot of, you know, diamond-based deck, I guess, that goes wide. But if he was expecting mid-range that much, he's got another one. And the Sanguine Boon, I really don't know what you do with Sanguine Boon that could not be better. I love the Steel Intel though. But yeah, then again, he did really well in the tournament. This is a strong list. And with the Century of Nilzan, really what this tells me is that he really wanted to shift gears and be one step more aggressive than the other mid-range deck. He wanted to be a slightly bit faster. And if you're mid-range and you're expecting a lot of control, for instance, being just a teeny bit faster usually is a good thing. So this is very interesting. Like, there's a few conflicting card choices in the list, I feel. And there's no coins. And in a grindy, list like that, I can see why he has no coins, right? He really want to make the, 1 drop, 2 drop, 3 drop kind of line. And he's even looking to play 3 drops and on turn 2 and 4 drops on turn 3, 5 drops on turn 4, but I'm pretty sure there would be space for coins in the short base as well. So this is the first one that tells me like maybe there's some there's some tweaking to be done, but very cool list. And I'm guessing that the Century of Nilzan turn 1s made a big difference in his tournament. I'm fairly sure that the fact that it's just 1 notch faster than the other mid-range Kagulichu deck helped him a lot. And 3 Dark Heart main deck is 3 Dark Heart, 3 Rancor is a lot. There's a lot to deal with amongst with the rest here. So pretty cool here. Good list. There's a few interrogations that I have, but for the most part I love the list, and feels like a strong balanced list. Urshulgi, 4th place, another Kagulichu Blood Wild, and we see this is different than the other one, right? The other one wanted to be 1 notch faster. This one, we start with Eager Lackey, that's more towards card advantage, getting more threats. 2 cheap shot mains, so clearly expected a lot more, a good portion of aggressive decks, maybe Ruby based, and also the Sapphire Wild or the Ruby Blood aggressive Dreadling decks, like Scrounge / Dreadling decks. 2 Horrors of War main, I love that. And the reason you see 2 Horrors of War main, again, this is the same thing. We have 2 Zoroastric main as well, 2 ramp, Acolyte of Shuku to ramp as well. We've got a 4 Cottontail Explorer, ensuring that you get to your shard drops on time. 3 Rafal, the Crusaders, the Runeer, Blood, a Fentio, Blood Priest, 2 Yazukan. I really love these 2-3 Yazukan to deal with problems. And there's a lot of constant in the meta as well, and a lot of people predicted a lot of constants as well in the meta. So this makes a lot of sense. If you have access to wild, you want to run 5 Yazukan. 3 Rancor I really like. There's a lot of removal in the format. Being able to just reuse one of your troops from the crypt, even more so, transforming it into a removal, then it's often a 3-for-1. So a 2-for-1 and a 3-for-1. So this one's really cool. 2 Yazukan as well, really going, rot pugging, Heart of the Redwood I love. I really love. Against all these control decks that have a lot of single target removal, now you have a big threat that if they kill it, you just go wide. You just go really wide. The problem with that is that there were a lot of Brides in the tournament, and Bride tends to steal these 1-drops, but if you're getting like 6, 7, 8, they might be able to steal like 2 or 3, but you'll be able to get a bunch, live, and this is a lot of value. Not to mention that you can bring him back from the crypt, and if they kill it again, then it just go wide again. So I really love the art of the Redwood here. Balthazar to gain health and draw cards, really important in lists like these, like 2 Mistress, 2 Yazukan, 3 Rancor. That's a lot of things. Like that's a lot of looping things from the crypt, and just being very efficient. And you still have the end game with the Zoroast Rectory and the Hours of War. So I really like Gargalet as well. There's a ton of targeted removal. If you have access to Wild, I feel like Gargalet is something that you should have ND, right? Somewhere in the 75. Really cool list. It's kind of doing like 2 things. So we saw another, the previous Kagulichu list was really wanted to go, one gear, like one gear quicker, like 1 notch quicker than the other mid-range decks, and this one goes the opposite way. It's just 1 notch slower than the other mid-range decks, but it goes bigger with the Rectory, with the Hours of War, with more of the top 10, like more Yazukan, more Mistress of Bones, and the Art of the Redwood, which is really great. Very cool decisions here in the list. Very few removal in terms of overall, like Rotten Rancor, we don't see any Dark Heart. Shard base again, no coins. I'm surprised to see no coins here. We're not seeing like the Sentries of Nozan, and we're going with the Zoroast Rectory kind of plan. So I'd like to see coins here. I think this is something that's missing from the list that should be there. Some amount of coins. And there's some really good ones as well for this list. Like both blood and white coins are just superb in a list like that. So really interesting choices here. You have the strategies and deck thread from the new forums. It's not there. What moves to the guide? Okay, makes sense. Alright, so what we have in the research? We have some amount of cheap shops. Keep in mind we had 2 in the main, so 2 other there. 3 Gazes, Steel and Tail, Strangle, more removal, Carnosaurus I like. This makes a lot of sense. Actually, right now, this is a good place to be playing Close Coffins. There's a lot of recurring threats going around, and people are playing threats in multiples, so in the set 5 meta, I didn't really like Close Coffin that much. Right now, we have a ton of reasons to play it. We have a metric ton of reasons to play it. It really bars down the Scrounge list, all the Spav Yazukans list, all the Pipit, Pesky Pipit list as well. A lot of lists right now are based upon the fact that there's going to be a ton of things in the crypt. And if you're running a ton of removal and you're playing Close Coffins, it's another way to double dip on the kind of hero foul kind of action, right? Very cool. Gemborn Prowler, Chumpasaur makes sense. Waltz of the Damned, 1 in the 75 seems fine. Very cool lift, but it's nice to see like 2 very different philosophy. This is the same base, the same champion, the same shards. It's the same mid-range strategy, but it's 2 very different approach here to the mid-range strategy. Really like. Now we get into the very interesting stuff, and our team came up with something that is very close to this as well. So I know the list very well. This is a slightly different implementation than what we came up with, but actually they were extremely successful, so we'll give him credit to that. Of course, we have Chinshire, non-player, with Uzu the Moonwalker. So Yuzu, for those who don't know, this is a champion that for 4 charges, you gain a threshold of your choice. That's it. It doesn't do anything else. This is a heavy blood base, right? We're saying 4 cheap shot main with 4 withering engage. This list doesn't mess around. Like cheap shots for the aggressive decks, and some amount of the time it's just a combat trick to just win trades, and it even provides value with the 1-drop, so you can kind of stall and have chump blockers. I love that. This was a good choice for that tournament, I believe. I'm not sure that if you're playing a list like that in the ladder tomorrow morning, you really want to have cheap shots, because after that tournament there's going to be a lot of blood control decks around, and cheap shot is not particularly well against them. It's good. I mean, it's not bad, but I think you could use it's more of a reserves. It's more of a reserves card in the ladder than a main card in the tournament, and you expect a lot of aggro. Where the metagame is very, very foggy, but it's a new metagame. Lots of new card, new format. We never had a rotation before, so you expect a lot of people to be running aggressive decks, and that makes sense to have these main decks. I'm not sure that going forward you want as many main decks, if at all. Strangle, Vampire Prince, Daughter of the Poet, and Shackling Strand. So wanted to round up the 2-drop 2-cost removal. I'm surprised to see Shackling Strands here instead of Decree of Banishing, for instance, in Diamond, because this is not a list that will be able to get a Sapphire Threshold before turn 4. As you can see right now, there's no Sapphire Threshold to be created here with a resource base. So essentially, you don't get a Sapphire Threshold before turn 4. What happens in a list like that is you get a combination of Diamond and Blood Threshold. On turn 4, you activate your champion power, you gain your Sapphire Threshold. Vampire Princess, Bride, 2 Bride here, Hero Fall. And I'll talk more about the 2 Poets and the Brides here. That seems extremely, when you first look at it, it really appears to be extremely greedy, but it's not that greedy. Silver Talon Adjudicator, this is where Yuzu, this is Yuzu enabling you to splash another shard and get a very, very, very good card at it. In the control mirror against the aggressive decks, it's an evasive threat. This is often a 3 and even more for 1. It can easily be a 4/1 if your health matter. It usually, having 5 more health will usually buy you 1 more turn in a game if you're not, winning in a winning position. And this card is just extreme value, and this is in a controlling shell, a card with extreme value. No wonder you want to. Yuzu really enables that. The other cards that Yuzu enables is Ryanant, the Soul Cursed. Against deck that goes wild, against deck that like Kagulichu's deck. This is against a lot of mid-range deck. This is a very cool choice, even more so when you're sporting a ton of removal, with Bride as being removal as well, and Vampire Princess also creating removal, and you're playing like 4 straight up board wipes that gets their best threat and put it into play under your control. So this is a lot of value right there. So, and the way the list like that works is that early on, we've got the Well of Retribution, and then we've got 8 coins, very, very good. I support the 8 coin plan here in a control deck, and then a lot of shards. This is 12, we've got 16, 15 plus 4, 8, that's 26 resource base again. There's a lot of resource, and in Yuzu, usually the first activation of Yuzu will be a Sapphire Threshold, and on turn 8, with the amount of cards the list has, like with the Adjudicator and 8 coins, you should be able to hit like either your 5th Blood Threshold or your 5th Diamond Threshold, turn 7, 8, 9. And this is a control list. So if you're wiping the board on turn 6, you bet you're going to be playing until turn 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? And the adjudicators enable you to draw cards. So things are not working right now. They're working for me. Am I back? This is not going to be an easy night, is it? Alright. Okay. Alright. So, this is not an easy, an easy list to figure out. Because usually on turn 4, if you will be playing Silver Talon Adjudicator with 2 blood threshold, 1 diamond threshold, and 1 sapphire threshold, or 2 diamond threshold, 1 blood threshold, and 1 sapphire threshold, and then you draw 2 cards and you have a threat. At that point, depending on the way the game goes, you will prioritize either the blood or the diamond thresholds, and your troops will die, your vampire prince will be, and another thing is that the way you hit the target with bride is because you're running 4 prints that are creating blood shards. So even though there's 8 blood shards with 4 coins and 4 will, that's roughly 16 sources of blood. There's a lot more sources of blood because of the prince. And bride, even when she's not at 5 threshold, she can still be a -1/-1 removal. Pair it with a cheap shot, all of a sudden you just remove the troop. And this is why rerunning a few brides, you can get away with a bit more cheap shots because of the -1 that you can combine with the brides, right? But the real kicker is that there's 3 Daughter of the Poets, and as soon as you hit 5 diamond threshold with a list like that, at the end of your turn, so if your opponent doesn't have a quick action removal, you just straight up get back a Silver Talon Adjudicator, or a Ryanant, or a Bride, or a Vampire at the end of your turn, right? And if you have multiple brides, if you happen to have a daughter, if you have one in the crypt, what you do is that you bring another daughter from the crypt, and now you have 2, and your opponent needs to kill both, because if he doesn't kill both, you just get the other one, and at some point they'll run out of removal, and then you get the other stuff back. So this is the late game plan. The late game plan is really to go up to these threshold, likely activating Yuzu twice per game, maybe even 3 times. And this is how you can get away with hitting like 5, well, this is basically, you need 11 different thresholds, right? You need 5 blood, you need 5 diamond, and 1 sapphire. Very, very cool list here. Did not expect to see list, having brides and Daughter of the Poet in the same configuration. One other thing I'd like to mention is that Daughter of the Poet, even if you don't activate her, she gives flight to herself to do 2 damage and life drain. There's a lot of life drain on the 2, like 2 drops. There's 7 2 drops with life drain on the list. So against the Dreadling decks, you can just attack with Vampire Prince and negate a lot of their damage, or you can just chum blocks Dreadlings for days and just gain health until they remove the Daughter. So very, very cool here. Brides to steal their threats, and 5-ish board wipes with a lot of card draw and a lot of health gain. So very efficient list. What I really like is going 4 with Aaron Gaze main. I think this is one of the key reasons why the list did so well in the tournament. It's just the 4 gazes and the 4 cheap shot right out of the gate. And this one I really want to look at the matchups to see how it fared, right? We look at this one. The first one is a Bishop Elijah list with 4 Daughter of the Poet, Ozawa's Wish, Explorer, Carnosaurus, Hope on the horizon. At the end of your turn, void up to target troop, revert that troop. At the end of turn, opposing champion's turn, put that troop. Okay, so you're kinda protecting your daughter of the poet with it, or you're just recurring Balthazar or Krakazors, or Elduratan's Glory. Cosmic Shaman is a good recurring troop as well, and some amount of Infinitrix. This is an interesting list, but against that much removal and card advantage, and just the straight up board wipes, this is what kill a list like that. It's just from the ashes, it's just so strong. They do their thing. Maybe they play a Krakazor on turn, 5 or something, and then you just wipe the board, get back whatever very big Hierophant they had, or shifted troops with all the Infinitric buffs, or you just straight up steal their Daughter of the Poet and you just activate a threshold with it. So Future Journeyman in that order. I also played From the Ashes deck. I think From the Ashes was the best performing card in the tournament in terms of Endlessment. Yep. From the Ashes, just outstanding. This was our strategy as well, to go with Blood Diamond for From the Ashes main with Yuzu and 4 Silver Talon with all the blood removal and some amount of Bride and or Poet. We ended up with 2 discs, one with Poets and one with Brides. This goes with both. 8 coin I really like. Let's see the other matches. One against a Kagulichu, that seems to be fairly standard. This is not a Rectory deck though. I want to see if they face the Rectory deck. Kagulichu with the Gravegeist. Alright. So this is the From the Ashes list, like the control list like that with this base, they just stomp the Kagulichu and the mid-range decks. Like this is what our team was aiming for, to just win against Gadro, win against mid-range. That was the goal, and these lists are very efficient at doing so. Next one is Ivan Slackpod list, but really what you can see here is that this one is not playing Pipit though. But if Morphic Army is scary, but you see like 1-drops, there's Dread Technomancer, and there's the Sharpshooter, and there's the Warp Seal. Here there's a bunch of 1 defense troop that you can get with the cheap shot and get value. At some point you just gain a ton of health, wipe their board, get their best card. Like they play a Siege Engine Gemini or 2 or 3 or 4, and then you just From the Ashes and steal it, and then you get it back and you replay it. And the nice thing is that when this enters play, so if it triggers because of the 1 cost or less, when you From the Ashes, you do get 2 of them. So another very interesting way to deal with. Yeah. Well, these were like kind of cards like that are very in your face, right? You know what it's good at, and if you want to beat mid range, you have a sweeper that also produce a good threat. Like, I mean, this wasn't hard to find, but it's not a lot of people were able to produce a list that was functional and that was consistent enough. We see Shinshire. I think this is the same list instead of Decree of Banishing, as I mentioned earlier. So 1 less K's, same amount of coin. Reserves. Oh, we didn't review the reserve for the first list, so let's just go back. What am I doing here? Reserves. Yeah, this is teammates fighting here. So Vampire Kisses, Zero Fall, more Princess, Strangle, Diamond's Favor, Decree of Banishing, Diamond's Favor, and a few Sapphire ones. So I think I love this one better. Just Decree of Banishing, being able to play it on turn 2 if you need to. Instead of having a Shackling Strand that you can only play on turn 4. I understand that you use this on a troop like Rotpack Gang, for instance, and it's permanently dealt with. Even if they get it back, it's going to exhaust every combat phase. And this might be a good reason. If you expect a lot of Rotpack Gang, maybe you want this one. And, you know, if you use this on a troop that Kagulichu uses, it's not going to provide a lot of value. So maybe that's good as a one-off, but then again, I think I would just play it in the reserves and have Decree of Banishing in the main. But I really love the 4 Withering Gaze here. The rest is pretty standard, like 3 Poets. Here we go up to 3 Brides instead of 2. 3 Revolve, 3 Strangles. The full set of Vampire Prince, very important when you play Brides. I really love these lists. Alright, so this was one of the top 8 participants, and this is a loss against the Monoblood deck. That's running Xentox Mattis. And the Withering Gaze. This is not an easy matchup. Close Coffins is a problem. Stealing Intel as well, like stealing the stuff here. But for the most part, this has... I'd guess that looking at the threats and the things that you put on the board, I'd give the upper end to the user list and the blood matchups, and in my experience, it's close to 50-50, but there's just more card advantage in there. But you need to be able to deal with Mattis though. If you don't have any way to deal with Mattis, you're screwed. And the early Withering Gaze to remove the Mattis from there is pretty good, and you know, having access to the Diamond's favor as well. So all the tools are there, but yeah, very cool list. Here we see Marshal Josephina with an Underworld list, Crusader, Prince Akaz, Infinitrix, Prowler main, Midnight Paladin, a few from the Ashes, but for the most part it's just a bit more aggressive list. And you're playing a few Brides and Silver Talons and even Sulkers, Ryan, so not a problem. Last list was Mono Diamond, Josephina, 4 William Ruan, 4 Decree of Banishing, 4 Poets, and you know, just a lot of aggression here. So, but that list, like with the 4 cheap shot main, I mean, kills 4, kills 8, kills 12. That's a lot. That's a lot of troop kill for 1 cost, you know, removal that also provides you with even more value afterwards. So, yep, love this list. Especially in the sideboard. Oh, that's your list. Which one, Metronomy? Sorry, I just don't keep up with the chat. This would be your list? Oh, the Josephina. Okay. Yeah, having against 4 cheap shot main, this is brutal. 4 Martyr. How well did the Martyr perform for you on that tournament? Because a lot of Dreadling decks. The other Josephina. Oh, you mean the... Yeah, that one. Oh, that's nice. Okay. The Midnight Gatherer, the Herald, the Lixil, Crusader, Zakaz, Coffin. I love Close Coffin main. That is cool. That is pretty cool. Full set of removal, standard for even the Crypt Curse Knight. Still, you don't want to see a lot of cheap shots around with that many threats with 1 cost, one defense, and that's a big problem. Like they all die to Bride and they all die to cheap shot, and when you face a list that has both, it's really hard to. You don't listen. I listen, but I also talk in an ice deck list, and there's a delay. So here you go. You should know, you're a streamer, sir. All right. Next one we have on the list, the 6th place, Alex Kate. Here we see, well, this is tried and true Mono Blood with the new tools, right? I love, again, I love the 4 Withering Gaze main. I really love. If you were playing kind of a mid-range slash aggressive deck, you were still having a lot of non-troop cards in your list. You really feel that Withering Gaze right now should be 4 main. Like, I don't see any list right now, and I looked at a lot of lists on the tournament, and I face a lot of lists in the ladder. People are playing, you know, upwards of like between 10 and 16 non-troop cards in their deck right now. The only one that don't play that much are Kagulichu, but right now Kagulichu plays a certain amount of, you know, Aerofall, a certain amount of Strangle slash Rudcast, a certain amount of Rancor, and you're already up to like 12, 13. It feels like when you get rid of Engage, you're always going to find a hit, and it's going to be, you know, always going to be relevant. You can get rid of the early Rectory. There's a bunch of stuff. Like, I really love these 4 Withering Gaze for the tournament. And we see here that the usual package, right? 4 Eurofall, 4 Strangle, the Exarchs, the Vampires in space, 2 Fentio, Xentox Mattis, Hunting Cry, and yeah, I mean, 4 3 Dark Hearts to round this up. The cheap shot package in the reserve, Close Coffin I really like, Steel Intel, the full set of Prowlers, and this really aims at beating the Kagulichu decks and the 2 Walls. So very sturdy Bloodsprinter Zorat mono blood list. It works. It has all the best removal, access to all the best removal, life drain, evasive threats. You know, there's lethal in here, and there's even 3 Brides that will always be online on 5. Very cool list. So very cool thing here, and we see 1/2/1 against and Terra's Monoblood. That's interesting, but for the most part, you know, we know how good Monoblood can be. It's very reliant. You always have removal. You have these vampires that, you know, threats that you need to deal with, and you have the endgame with the Xentox Mattis that provides a very strong endgame reliability, and Dark Hearts. I mean, they're just good. They're just pretty good. We don't see the gem choices in here, but I wouldn't be surprised for these to be Sacrifice and Blood Evasion gems. It could also be Sacrifice and Speed. But this has to be a 7/7 when it comes into play, and then you have to deal with it. And if you don't deal with it at quick, then you're in trouble. The fact that it also comes as a 7/7, it means that it doesn't die to Strangle when it comes into play, and this is a big deal. Like, having a threat that doesn't die to Strangle right now is so important. There's a ton of blood decks. Strangle is very easily the best removal in the format. Maybe Sagan to Cheap Shot, but Cheap Shot is very conditional. Like, Strangle, for 2 costs, it deals with 4 and 5 cost cards at quick. It's just insane. Extremely strong card. And one of the reasons why you see these decks popping out is the Strangle Withering Gaze package really gave a big notch to Blood. And these are the enablers to be able to play things like Bride of the Damned. So, very cool list here. Very sturdy, very linear, but it works. We've got another Yuzu list here. This one's a bit different. This one was going with the God of Cunning, a few Shard Prism, coins, and a bunch of Blood Shards. So, 3 Withering Gaze, 2 Cheap Shots. I love this main. That makes sense for the tournament. Exarch, you know, against a mid-range aggressive decks, always good to have lethal threat on 2. You know, Strangle, Real the Vampire package, some amount of Rotcast as well. So 5 2-cost removal that deals with like a lot of threats. And of course, you got the Real 3 Ryanant for the board wipes and the Vampire Queen. I really love choosing the Vampire Queen over Ratpagang. Ratpagang is surprisingly hard to enable. It's good, but you really want it when you can guarantee to have troops, like outside of playing Bloodspinner Zorat or a bunch of Zorat's Victory, I feel like you don't necessarily want to play Route Pagain. Maybe in some of the Kagulichu deck where there's a lot of recursion, right? You always have a threat on the board, or a troop on the board that you can sacrifice, but for the most part, Vampire Queen is so hard to deal with. You have to deal with 3 troops that are all evasive, that all becomes good, and it's extremely hard to race as well. Love the Vampire Queen here. So essentially this list, hey, thanks for the follow, the Dark Knight Hex, welcome to the team. So the choice here was, you're not going to go with Diamond to get a board wipe with From the Ashes, because these control blood decks, they usually need a board wipe. This is where they fall off. Usually this is where they fall off, because if you go wide on them and you have a lot of threats, they will just 1-for-1 the troops, but at some point they don't have enough, and you have a threat that sticks on the board and just attack them. And then you deal with the Vampire, either way. So instead of going Blood Diamond with From the Ashes, they use Ryan and the Sorkers has quote-unquote board wipes. And with that many removal, I mean, we're looking at 2, 5, 7, 11, and Bride of the Damsel removal, so we can actually count these to with Yuzu even more. So we're looking at 14 upwards to 16, and this is more or less removal and board stabilization. So there's like 20 removal in this list with a bunch of life gain evasive threats. Very cool list. Yeah, like this, and if you didn't play this yet, like if you just, the best feeling in the world is that on turn 5 you play Radiant, and they have like 3-4 troops, and then you pass. And they don't attack, because if they attack with their troop, you're going to trade, and they're going to lose their board. And maybe they kill Radiant on their turn, right? And then they pass. And what you do on the turn 6, you play Bride, you play Strangle and or Hero Fall, and kill one of their troop. And you just steal their whole board. Like, you steal everything. Everything gets back on your board, on your side of on the fence. It's just so good of a feeling. Really love it. I can't imagine myself playing any standard deck without Bride until at least set 7 is out. There's a lot of ways to play around Bride and negate her effect. She's good. She's going to be played. Right now, Blood is in a space where it's just so efficient. There's just so much redundancy to it. But there's definitely ways to deal with her. And lists like that will need to evolve if they want to be competitive in the future. Because this worked for one tournament. But, you know, if everyone is playing Bride, a lot of people would just start playing Close Coffins and things like that. So there's a few ways to deal with her. But that's clearly a good card that you need to be aware of right now in Standard. And this is likely going to be cross-format powerhouse as well. Cool list here, very standard. You know, it's not a standard list, but using Yuzu to, again, we see the same theme, right? Strong Blood base, have access to all the good removal, all the good stuff, and Bride. Do I have to stop the stream again? It's a baby monitor, guys. I have very young kids, so 1 and 2, and I may have to, you know, put you on hold for a few minutes if they wake up. Back to the list here, really love it. I mean, this is standard. We've seen it, you know. Look at the top here. There's just a ton of these very efficient blood-based lists. And this one is just, you know, another savor of it. That last list of the top 8, the only list that doesn't run blood, is a Marshall Josefina Ruby Diamond list. And Ruby did get quite a number of very cool tools in the new set. And I tried the Victory Hours deck. What do you mean? One person doing well in the tournament is not a trend. If you're speaking about blood, this is just not one person But this one might just be a fluke, but it's certainly, I mean, he did very well. 6-2 is not anything to sneeze at. We see here 2 coins. This is an aggressive list, so I can get behind not having a lot of coins, but even then, Marshall Josefina, the Ayatochi coin here, providing a charge boost, really cool. I would love to see maybe 1 or 2 more coins in the list like that, but we'll see. Oh yeah, Rectory Horror deck is a cool deck. It's easy to 8, but it still has a very strong, a first plan, right? Your main plan is to win with, you have Rodpa Gang, and you're still playing Kagulichu, and you have a bunch of things to sacrifice. But for instance, lists like that are very vulnerable to 5th book of Nozan, 5th book or something. What's the name of the card? I just have a blank. It's 5th book of Darcis. Like, if you just 5th book on turn 3, if you have ways to remove constant in play, you just 5th book and remove all rectories from their list, or all Ores of War. That could be, something, right? There are ways to deal with the Rectory Ores of War list, and it's certainly like a very good, Ali Eldrazi coming in first with a list like that, and I know the rest of the team didn't just crash and burn, right? They also did fairly decent with the list, so it's a good list, and I expect to see that list on the ladder. But at the same time, this is just an this is not an all powerful list. Like, we don't see 3 or 4 of them in the top, and it didn't overperform. It's a very cool list, but keep in mind, it's likely the hardest list to play of the whole, top 8. And we're seeing someone like Ali Eldrazi being good with a list like that. It doesn't mean that the average player can be good with a list like that, because this is a very complicated list to play. And I don't expect like mainstream player just to start with the list and do good with it. It's a very hard list to play. Here, back to the diamond list. Here we see 4 general, very cool Valor creating engine. Replaces Hero of Legion pretty much in the in the human Valor list. We see the Crusader, the Elders, 1 Hero of Legion with 4 generals. Here is a ton of Valor creation. We see the Conjurer to go wide, Outlaw, likely the best Ruby cards of the set, an extremely good card here, a bunch of Firebrands. Like, there's a lot of Valor creation. Even the one-off to enable the Crusaders are quality troops, like William Rowan, for instance. 2 main deck Riposte is something great. However, I'm not quite sure about that. I guess if you expect a lot of removal, you can just steal their removal early game, and just gaining 1 turn usually will make you in a position where you can attack for lethal on the next turn, even if they remove your troops. So I can see that, but then again, how many Ruby sources do we have here? We have 4, 8, 13 Ruby sources with 2 Riposte main. I'm not sure. Even just 13 Ruby sources with 4 Art of Ember seems a bit low. We see 1 Daughter of the Poet, but for the most part the diamond requirements are just like 2 diamond late game. So I think there could be work to be done on the shard base, on the resource base of this deck. This is very, stream efficient list, running the best Valor enabled troops here, and Heart of Ember can easily, give you the reach to finish up a game. I like the one-off Martyr sense here, the Elders. This is all good stuff we already fought, but the power level of the general is not to be underestimated here. And you still have access to now 4 Decree of Banishing that goes around things that triggers when they die, and this is very important in the new format. We're still seeing a ton of Crusaders in the meta, and you know, a ton of Cagulicho decks, and making sure that they don't get to reuse their troops and equip is great. Although Decree of Banishing against Bob Yazkan is not the best. The 2 favors, as I was wish, Ruby favors, Scouring Light to destroy all constants. I love the Clash of Steel. I really love the Clash of Steel. Totem Traps and the Exotic Knight. So, you know, clearly a list that aims at going fast, going well. Seeing, you know, Blood Zentat's Mattis deck with a decent amount of removal, but it doesn't appear that that list was able to keep pace. And this is very interesting because there's 3 cheap shot main. 2 Strangles. Well, that's 2 Strangle and 4 Eurofall is not a ton with 3 cheap shots. You know, when we compare to the other blood base that we looked at tonight. But very cool list here. Well, yeah, if you're expecting a lot of, you know, last course vengeance, things of the sort, Riposte is great, but is it really the thing that you were expecting coming into this tournament, though? That's a question. But this is cool tech, right? This is when I see, you know, a top 8 that is all blood, all over its blood in Cagulicho and all Savers of Blood. And we see a list like that doing top 8, and there's 2 regional riposts in the main. This is really what stands out, right? This is what really comes out and in light, and I really love this. Like this choice here, very interesting for the tournament, and it appears to have paid well. So blood-based Takahiro, and then fought Takahiro blood wild deck. And then it won against wow, Decree of Banishing, Shepherd, Lapidary. This is, if I'm not mistaken, this is Peace Tinker's list. Yep. So won against that. Another Cagulicho won 2-0, so lost 2-0 to, yeah, one of the top 8 here. One of the top 8, 2-0 against another Cagulicho. So we see that the list, like, he was able to, he fought a decent amount of Cagulicho and won. So there's merit to the list for sure. I'd be surprised to ask if the riposts were very, you know, impactful in his matches or not. Yeah, Rancor, like, stealing a Rancor has to be one of the best feelings, like, has to be one of the coolest, right? So, Blood, you're going to steal, you could even steal, like, Withering Gaze. That's a good target. Usually, you know, removal is against control decks. You're not necessarily likely to have a target for it, but again, just waiting for a turn and getting it. The only gripe I'd have against this list really is the resource base, like 13 ruby sources with 2 original riposts. I understand that you may not want to be playing them like turn 2 or 3, but that seems to be low, but I like the idea here. And, you know, Righteous Outliers is just top tier. Valor creating aggressive troops. Intrepid Conjurer when you have, you know, engines like the Warthorn General and all the other Valor creation decks. The Moonrat Elder, this can end games pretty quickly and go wide. I love that. Martin Sun is just a good way to wrap up the curve and impactful threat that it's hard to deal with. So clearly a cool list. This one I am very interested to try. I'm saying that because we did, you know, we did test with a lot of lists. The one thing I wanted to check, because when we look at the tournament results here, one of the key things that was standing out is that when you look at the shard combination, 1%, you see Blood, Diamond, Sapphire here. They were only 4 decks, but they're at 71%. So what I want to do right now is to look at the top list and see where they ended up. The 4 lists, right? We've got 1/5, 1/9, wow, 126, 37. Like, the team that came up with the list, they all were pretty high. Let's see Anima. I know Anima and Chinchilla are on the same team. Against Ruby, yep, that works, that makes sense. This is an interesting take on the list. Mono Wild, that makes a lot of sense. Another Ruby deck. Just has all the tools, and keep in mind they were running 4 cheap shot mains, so against the Ruby decks, just really just thump over them. Like 3 Strangle, 4 cheap shots, Hero Fall, Adjudicator, the Brides. Like, there's just answers for days against these Ruby lists here. Kagulichu, and then the this is Metro's list. All right. So this was Anima, and the next one here, I'm guessing that this is either Future or the last member of the team. Sharpshooter Sass. Oh, it's a bit of a brew. Kagulichu. So the list right now, like this does well against Kagulichu, and from our internal testing as well, this was a very long, atrocious matchup, but you have all the tools to outlast Kagulichu decks, and stealing their best threats from the Ashes really makes a lot of difference. And having access to recurrent adjudicators or Bride stealing their troops there makes a ton of difference. Yeah, this is teammate fighting each other. This is Metronomies again, and he mentioned that he faced them like in a row. Blue Sparrow. Anyone know if they posted the CCS draft decks? I'm not sure. Did they? Nothing is in here. Maybe on the forums. Let's see. And this is Egva here. It lost to this list. Egva, he played against a few lists that I would have expected lists like that to lose to. A bad percentage. So I don't know if it was luck or the list is better than I expect it to be against a blood-based control list like that, but it's certainly a good list. Like, this is good, very aggressive list that should be consistent in what it's doing, even though I'm not a fan of the resource base. And the last one was this one. And this one is a bit different than the other ones. Oh wait, this one is Pistinker, right? So ended up 37. So really that combination of shards here with the Yuzu is the one that performed the best by a fair margin. And this is the one I've been playing in the ladder over the past few days, that I worked with the team to generate, and we see another team generating a fairly similar list, and it performed really well. And I can't wait to continue to play with Blood Diamond from the Ashes. I just really love the card. The big question right now is to know for us, for the team, was to know if Bride or Daughter of the Poet were the best fit for such a list, and we see that the team Russia here went with both, and I can't wait to to kind of start testing with both. It seems to be far-reaching, but then again, it performed very consistently over 3 members of their team, and they're all, what, top 25? 26? And one in the top 8? That's the big thing coming out of the tournament is this. I really love the Kagulichu list, but the Blood Diamond Yuzu list right now, they perform extremely well. I'm not sure how they can adapt, but it feels like Diamond has access to all the tools to deal with the Rectory engines, having access to the Adjudicator, having access to Daughter of the Poet. There's a lot of things, like there's a lot of pieces that you can adjust to deal with anything, and it's already by default a list that is pretty good against aggressive Ruby base deck, and it's good against Kagulichu, so very, very interesting. For more testing, it was a bit weak against the Heavy Sapphire control list with a lot of interrupts, and the list that goes really, really wide with Silver Talon Mandate, but we don't see a ton. That's the big thing that's missing right now that I don't see is Silver Talon Mandate. Let's see, we've got a Megbumbus that did well. Nanopus side Vengeance. Stifling Sting is so good. Like for main deck, I approve. I really approve. Rot Pugging, Gobbler, a lot of speed, attacker. This is nothing new. We don't see any coins though, but it's kind of an aggressive list, and a bunch of originals, reports, Crackling Marma for the Dreadling base, Fire Strike for the Crusader I love, Alt, Transmogrify. A lot of the removal right now is quick, so Alt makes a lot of sense in this meta. There's a real top 8. You can verify Ruby Diamond list against what Arian posted on the forum. Oh, interesting. Thanks, Anmar. This... Oh... I didn't... Yeah, there's a space. Let me just fix that. This is the top 8 draft from the CCS. See, going back to the list here. Yeah, one here we don't see Silver Talon Mandate though. We've got Sapphire, Ruby, Sapphire. This is another. No, this is the Membarbus we just looked at. Diamond, Sapphire, Control, Dreaming Fox. It has to be. We don't see any Mandate. I really expected to see Mandate and heavy Sapphire shells in the top, but well. Not necessarily in the top, but not necessarily in a control shell, but a silver mandate like mid-range kind of deck. I expected to see more of it. Of course, right now, you know, Sapphire has access to a lot of interrupts, but if you want to build a Sapphire control deck, you need to know what you're facing. Right now, you know, I feel like, you know, after this weekend, there's going to be a good Sapphire base deck in the mix, in the meta. There will be one. Blood Sapphire, Ivan Slackbot. Ruby Sapphire, McBumbus. 41. Another. There's not a ton. Well, let's see. We can't search, right? Silver Talon Mandate. There were no Silver Talon Mandate in the whole tournament. Wow. That's a surprise to me. But that's a cool, yeah, again, thanks Fred for your website if you're there and you're watching. Very great. And yeah, we see a ton of stuff right there. So very big domination by blood. So if you're going to the ladder tomorrow or this week, be ready to face blood. And there's new archetypes that were not that well known. The Rector rebuild is certainly very interesting. There's a lot of play to it, and I expect a lot of people to use it and don't do very well with it, but that's a cool list. You know, blood control, Kegulichu. There were already a ton of these lists on the ladder, and they certainly did well, and they were doing well in the ladder. So that's not a surprise there. The Yuzu bloodless, I've been playing Yuzu for 2 weeks now, and I can't wait to continue to play it. I love the Blood Diamond Yuzu so much. Very, very cool. Doesn't seem to be working, which is sad. I wanted to review their picks. Yeah, that would be cool, but that would be for another stream. I'll try to see this week if we can do a stream just going over the draft for the top 8. That would be cool as well. I'll try to wrap something up once we have access to it. But these results, man, these results are very, very... The story here, I think, you know, it was... We were pretty sure, you know, within the team and myself that this was an arms race to the best blood and the best bright deck. But for the most part, I did not expect to see as much blood, right? Even if you go outside of the top 8 and you look at more like even if you go on like 6 wins and you look at the you know, the decks, the amount of decks really, like Blood White, Blood Ruby, Blood Diamond, Sapphire. Like we've got how many decks right now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 17 decks. We've got 3, 5, 7. We've got 9. More than half of the 6 win decks are blood based deck. More, you know, more than half. And extremely high. Extremely, extremely high. And when we look at the champion, I mean, that's the same story, right? Uzu, 4 Uzu, 4 Josephina, 3 Kegulichu, 2 Blood Spinners of Rats. That's a lot of blood. Like, you better be ready to face blood decks if you're going into the tournaments in the near future. The other thing I wanted to do tonight is we've got a 5-shard weekly that also completed earlier today. And we've got a Diamond Cup as well. So 5-shard weekly, if we just skim to it, just going to go over the stats here. Overall number of decks. Aerofall, Prowler, Strangle, Runear Eurofan, Exart. You see that blood is everywhere. Blood clearly skewed toward blood. Acolyte of Shoku, Decree of Decree of Banishing. So it's seems to be a bit less skewed towards blood. If we look at the number of decks here, there are actually more Marshal Josephine as the Kegulichu, a big number of Ivan, Morgan Mbambus. Not a lot of Yuzu, like 2 Yuzu players. Let's see here where the shards. Blood Wild, like 18 Blood Wild. Very big. And matches 1. Wow, look at that percentage. That's the highest played, the most popular deck, and it has an extremely good win ratio. Here, Sapphire Wild, Blood Ruby, Blood Diamond. Do we see Blood Diamond, Sapphire? But if we just matches 1 percentage, Blood Diamond, Sapphire. Again, it shows really, really well. Alright, let's try to find this one. This one is at 75%. 8 matches. 2 decks. Let's see. I guess if we go matches 1 percentage, we see Yuzu at the top. Yep. Kegulichu, very, very strong. Like Kegulichu and this deck here in the 5 shards weekly. And do we see the Yuzu deck top 8? Nope, it's 10th, Enima. Alright, what did Ivan Slackpot? Well, Blood Wild. Okay, so this is something I want to look at for sure. 3 Kegulichu Blood White decks. Let's see if there's any Rectory deck in there. And then we've got a Mono Diamond deck. Blood Diamond Marshal Josefina. I want to look at this. Chism Jedi. Blood Wild deck. And a Diamond Ruby deck again. FK. I believe it's the sameness. So yes, see. So this is winning player with Ivan Slackpot. This Tezozo. We see Crusaders, Mad Progenitist. You know what? What? Ivan. What does Ivan do again? Am I crazy? Ivan. Each different... Okay. So it summons Dreadlings. So where do we go with that? We power Rodpa Gas, Ghetto's Cast, Year Offense, Crusaders. There's a Pesky Pipet. This is... Dread Harvests. Oh, the Sharpshooter. Okay, this is where we're going. This is a more aggressive Blood Wild deck with the Sharpshooter. Okay, I see. What do we have in the reserves? Cheap Shots, Withering Gaze, Exarchs, Rust and Rune, Carnosaurus Lullaby. Okay, that makes sense. Alright, so these were the 3 Kegulichu decks. So this one is a Graven Geese deck with Might Singer of Ages. Okay. Reserves. About what to expect. Noxious Glory is an interesting choice in the reserves here. Let's see the next one. Kegulichu. Yeah, this is pretty much more or less standard Kegulichu. This one running a few coins at the very least. Alright, Harvest Moon. Close Coffin I really like right now. I think that Blood decks should be playing Close Coffin right now. This negates Bride of the Damned, by the way, so... and it's one-sided. It doesn't hurt yours. Opposing... well, if an opposing troop will die, avoid it. So, it turns off your Bride, and it doesn't turn off their Bride. So it's not that great. But as soon as you kill their Bride, they don't have any Bride anymore. It also deals with Rotpar Gang and all matters of Kegulichu, so. And the last one is not a Rectory deck, okay. Oh wow, this is spicy. 3 Woken Drokatar in the deck. Does it play 4 coins? Only 2 coins. It's not even the wild coin. Might Singer of Ages. Still seeing Might Singer of Ages and a bunch of lists having success. I mean, this is an extremely strong cards. We lost the enablers, the big, the big, splashy, flashy enablers, but it's still one head of a card, and it might only be second to Bride of the Damned. And it's just that Bride of the Damned right now has more enablers. Like we've got Bride and we've got enablers for Bride with very efficient low cost removal and a lot of support for Blood, and we lost the enablers for Might Singer of Ages. But in a world where we would have access to the Brave and the Chlorophilia, I could very well see a Kegulichu list playing both Might Singer of Ages and Bride of the Damned, and that would be a scary thing to face. Very, very scary thing to face. Woken Drokatar is very interesting. Like, you're not putting that many troops, but if you manage to just send this one in a crypt and you Rotten Rancor a Drokatar in play, all the rest become free, like all the other ones become free. And that might just be a new tech, right? Like, if you have ways to cheat this one into play, you're playing a bunch and sending them to the crypt might just be a cool reanimator tech here. See the other list that we flagged. Vazriel with Marshal Josephina here. Oh, this is a wow. This was a Blood Diamond one. So this is an MC list with Sentry of Nulzan, 4 Altar of Nulzan, Withering Gaze, Knight, MC, Tactician, Revenant, Vicar, 1 Hero Fall. There's not a lot of removal. Like, there's no removal, just pure aggression here. Would be very interesting to know what are the gems, because it must be a complicated gem scheme here, to say the least. Okay, so the removal is all in the reserves, basically. That's interesting. Very interesting list, I love it. MC is so powerful. There's going to be lists with MC in the near future. Just don't have it yet, but even if it's not now, it will be, you know, in the upcoming sets. That this is a card that once it's going to be broken, it's going to be insanely good. Like, we already have some ways to make this as a 5/5 on turn 2, and that's very scary. So, Flight Knights, Speed MC, +2 defend Grimskull. Makes sense. 3/4 for 3. That exhaust blocker, flight on speed on MC. I think I would switch speed and flight between these two, like flight in MC and speed in Crypt Curse Knight. But yeah, that's very, very interesting list. Scary list. And these are the kind of lists that we'll see pop out, and I wouldn't be surprised like to see more of these in the top of the tournaments in the future. Jadim the Jedi, Kegulichu playing 4 Bride. I love this, like a Kegulichu list playing 4 Brides, Crusaders and Runia. Like the 3-drop slot is packed with power. 3/2, not a lot of removal, but 3 Pavyazukan and 4 Rotten Rancor. This list does not mess around, and Rotten Rancor with Bride is just, let me kill something and just steal it. Straight up steal it. And yeah, okay, so we're seeing a decent amount of coins here. That's what I wanted to see, like 8 coins. This is like, the takeaway of these tournaments is that you just be greedy with the coins. Like, play as many coins as you can. It doesn't matter what they are. Play as many as you can. Yeah, there's not a lot of 1-drops. Like, playing a slow shard on turn 1 is okay. Like, if you have a bunch of coins, you play a coin on turn 1, that's fine. It's very low to no impact at all. And late game, when you draw them, you just use them and draw more cards. And if you're playing 4 Cottontail Explorers, usually they draw you shards, but later in the game they give you card draw. This is extremely strong. Like, 8 coins with 4 Explorer, I really like. And 4 Written Rancor, I think this is a card, like, in a format where there's a metric ton of removal around. 4 Written Rancor makes a very, very good difference. And right now, the aggressive decks are really not that great because of all the blood that is in the meta. And blood has all the tools to deal with aggressive decks. You know, this is a slower breed of Kegulichu build, but there's a lot of, you know, redundancy, and you can just recur things with 4 Rotten Rancor and 2 Rapagang. There's Yazukan. This is a ton of recursion, and you're playing Kegulichu itself as recursion, so really cool list. And I think it's not to be underestimated. Like, 8 coins, that's a significant amount of draw. 8 coins, 4 Crusaders, plus stealing troops, and then you recur troops into play. You have the Pavias cannot access removal, and if you recur it, it's like 2, 3, 4 for 1 kind of thing. Like, there's a ton of things going on here. I really love this. And you've got a Zoroastrian plan on the board against the control deck, so that makes a lot of sense as well. Ground Skiff is interesting. So we've got a Cheap Shots, the Withering Gaze, like this. If you're playing Kegulichu like in the ladder tomorrow morning, this is the kind of list I would be going for. Like a ton of coins, a ton of fixing. You're playing arguably the most powerful cards in like the 3 most powerful 3 drops in the game. The best, one of the best 4 drops, 4 and Rancor. Like this list has it all. And you can even go with the Zoroastrian ramp plan against the control deck, and that's very significant. You still get to play like Strangles and Cheap Shots against the aggressive decks if you find them. This makes a lot of sense. Egva, yep, this seems to be 1 Hero of Legion, the 2 original riposts, so this is the same list. And he ended up 4-1, so definitely performed well again. So what did he win against? A weird mix of card, aggressive deck with Prince Akaz and everything. Okay. This is a Megbumbus with a metric ton of draw. Huh. Okay. Mono Sapphire deck. Playing Jargon Workshop with Tactician. There's Rosas. This is a weird mix of cards. And a Kegulichu deck. Alright, so this list here, like the 2 lists that really interest me right now would be this list. Is this the same configuration, like 4, 8, 12, 13 sources of Ruby? It appears to be the same reserve, so very interested in this Ruby list. It seems to be doing well against the decks here, the Kegulichu of this world. And it does pack a punch. Really interested in this one. Sorry for that. Very cool list. Alright, so this doesn't work. May need that in the future. But yeah, I guess that's summing up for the constructed events of the weekend. Blood is everywhere. Just pick your favorite flavor of blood and go in the ladder in the tournaments. Kegulichu still one of the top decks. I mean, the sheer card quality of the deck is just great, and it tends to be a mid-range deck, and it has a champion that is just superb at mid-range decks. So no wonder it's still great, and even though it lost the wild threshold acceleration, it's still a very potent deck, and you just you can still play a Might Senior of Aegis, she's still extremely good, extremely strong, and we can still you can replace her with Bride of the Damned, and it's just going to be superb as well. We've seen this playing Poet, Dollar of the Poet, and Bride in the same list and doing it extremely well. I'm wondering if we could see at some point a list playing Bride of the Damned and Might Senior of Aegis in Kegulichu. I don't know if that will happen at some point, but this would be interesting space to explore for deck lists. But man, did this weekend ton of stuff. Did we review the Diamond Cup? I think this was 5 Shards Weekly, right? Let's look at Diamond Cup. Yep, Diamond Cup. Third constructed tournament of the weekend. Top 8. Blood Diamond Sapphire Huzu here. We'll look into that for sure. Blood Diamond. Oh, Blood Diamond Josephina. This is likely the necrotic aggressive list. Sapphire Wild, even Slackpot. We're seeing even getting up there. Like, this list is extremely powerful. It will adapt, and I'm fairly certain it will still show up in the top 8. We're seeing one Ingus. Okay, finally an Ingus deck. Blood Wild, Kegulichu, Ruby, Sapphire, Morgan, Bombus at the top 8, and another Kegulichu. Still a lot of blood decks, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but not as dominated by blood as the other events. And looking at the top list here, Takahiro as a blood deck is very interesting. Tomb Swat, Cheap Shot, Dread Factory. Dread Factory, okay. Lackey, Blood Bearer, Strangle, Hunting Cry, Prince, Mattis, Bride, Dread Apprentice. I see where we're going. So instead of using Rectory to create Dreadling, we're using Dread Factory to power out the Mattis. We've got all Bride of the Damned shenanigans, a decent amount of removal, and some Tomb Swap that also provides Dreadling. Okay, Rotbagging, this is an interesting list for sure. Whittaker Gaze, Misery, more removal, Grim Justice, oh, that's nice. And Gemborn Prowler, okay. 8-0, it ran hot. I'm pretty sure it was in the, where did he place in the Cosmic Crown Showdown? Let's see, Takahiro. I know he played the same champion in the... Takahiro, Blood Diamond, this is not the one. Blood Wire, this is not the one. This is likely the one. Yeah, it looks like... yeah, it looks like the same. It must be his list. Okay, so 2-3. Didn't go well, but he still made it 8-0 in the 5 shard here. In the Diamond Cup. That's pretty cool. So is this... Yep, Daughter of the Poet, Bride of the Damned. This is one of the Team Rachel's list. Scarring Light instead of Diamond's Favor. Steel Intel. I love Emperor Kiss, Princess. I love the Mad Rebel Benzer. I really get behind this one. This one against control decks. This one is great. I love this one. Ryan Int again, and the reserves, and the 4. Like these, and Bride, and everything. We see the 8 coins. Yep. Love it. And this is like... This is not something you'd expect, right? When you see Daughter of the Poet and Bride of the Damned in the same deck, it seems extremely weird. It seems like an error, a misstep in deck building. Like, you don't expect to be hitting these 2 5 threshold troops, even more so when you're playing a third shard. But it like across 3 tournaments, it did fairly well. Well, I'm assuming it did well. Let's see. Blood Diamond Sapphire. There's another one, like 13. Okay, so let's see. Decks. How many decks? Blood Diamond Sapphire. There were 5. Okay, so here the win match 1 percentage is a lot lower. Well, actually, it's the best of the tournament. Blood Diamond Sapphire. 5 decks. Highest win percentage across 3 tournament, right? Is that the thing? Okay, so we've got a Cosmic Round Showdown. We've got a 5 shard weekly. We've got a Diamond Cup. Highest, most successful Blood Diamond Sapphire. Most successful. Well, one deck Sapphire. Okay, that's not well, two decks, but still, like, two decks perform really well. Four decks perform really well, and then five decks perform best performing archetype. Huh. It's like it's hard to take, yeah, since it's a very small portion of the field, it's hard to take hasty conclusion on the Blood Diamond Sapphire list, but it might just be that it's the same players playing in all these tournaments, and they know their list very well, and they're very good players, and they do well with it. It might just be that, but seeing it across like 3 constructed tournaments over the weekend, and we even have the top 8 of the Diamond Cup, so okay, it went 4th, dropped in 1-1. Still, this is one, like, looking at the list from the Cosmic Crown Showdown, like from all this weekend, like the 3 lists that really stands out is the Zora's Rectory deck here with 4 Auras of War, a very interesting control list here. And again, we're seeing 8 coins with 4 Cotton-tailed Explorer. We've got Kagulichu, we've got Tilling the Soil. There's a ton of card draw here. Very cool list. And then you have the Blood Diamond Sapphire list, the Yuzu from the Ashes Adjudicator list here, fairly cool, with 8 coins as well. And the other one, and really, like, this one, if it would have been just one tournament, but it's 2 tournaments, like, very strong results for this Ruby Diamond Human list with Valor. Very interesting results for this weekend. Like, these are the really 3 lists that I want to explore. And again, with internal team testing, we've ended up with going in the same direction for the Sapphire Diamond Blood list, but we didn't go as far as to go Daughter of the Poet and Bride of the Damned in the same list. So this one is the one I'm going to test for sure and try to play again. But if you're playing somewhat of a control list, you're just going playing 8 coins. Like, another takeaway is that play as many coins as you can. Coins are great. We don't have a lot of turn 1s, and if you're playing Blood, you're not very scared about, you know, early aggressive lists. So just play as many coins as you can afford, and it adds so much to the decks right now. But yeah, blood is where it's at, and we're seeing a ton of Brides of the Damned, of course. So if you're going to go in a ladder in upcoming tournaments in the upcoming weeks, make sure you have a plan to deal with Bride of the Damned. Usually the plan would be a Rofal, so you'll be playing your Brides. This is kind of an interesting conundrum here. So how do you deal with Bride of the Damned? Bride of the Damned if you're not Blood? Ideally, you want quick action removal. That's a given. So quick action removal that kills Bride, that is not Blood. That's a good question, right? If we go this, and give me a second, guys. This is work. Please tell me something didn't crash again. I've clocked a fair amount of overtime this weekend. What's happening? High ticket. Okay. That's interesting. Another reason why I may end up stream earlier than I intend. Okay, so we were trying to find maybe so quick. Well, anything quick really. Anything quick to deal with Bride of the Damned in PvP standard. So how do we deal with Bride of the Damned? Hereafter, no. No. Okay, Fireball is one. So we have one. We have Fireball. We have Transmogrifate. There's two. But I think the true... We don't have anything in Wild, in Diamond. Three Martyr. Okay, there's one in Ruby, there's one in Diamond, there's one in Sapphire. Fire in the roll-ish. Dingle is one. So there's two in Sapphire, more or less. I guess Sapphire would be the best way to deal with Bride of the Damned. Like you transform her into a Dingle, or you transform her with Transmogrifade. Seems like the best plan. Diamond is not particularly good against it. Like Ruby, there's definitely a bunch of quick action removal that you can play to deal with her. Stifling Sting is one of them as well. Deny can just interrupt her. Let's see, what else do we have? Holy Reprisal, no. 4 cost is too much for Bride, but something borrowed deals with her. There's not a lot of stuff. Like if you're playing heavy Sapphire, you have access to Deny, you have access to Transmogrifade, and you have access to Dingle. That's a decent amount of cards to deal with Bride, if you're not in Blood. If it's not Sapphire, then Ruby. So maybe there's a Ruby Sapphire deck that can, now that we know what the enemy is, so to speak, would be able to deal with the Blood Bride decks. The question is, would that deck be good against Kegulichu as well? That's an interesting thought. But there's not a lot of action. Yeah, at quick speed it's really hard to deal with her. Extremely hard to deal with her. I think we're going to see emerge from the set 6 meta a Ruby Sapphire deck. There's so many good cards. Right? There's Stifling Sting. There's a lot of stuff that are really great in Ruby and Sapphire right now. I would be extremely surprised that we don't see something emerging Ruby Sapphire that can beat these blood-based decks. traditionally speaking, heavy sapphire has been the way to win against blood. Just for the interrupts, really. So and right now sapphire has a ton of removal as well. Like when we look at the removal suit in sapphire, I mean there's enough to work with here. Let's just go with actions. Like when we look at the removal suit, like if you're in Ruby, you've got just not looking at a card draw here, but Transmogrifade, Shackling Strands is so good. So good right now. In an era where troops are recurring from the crypt, being able to, you know, permanently make them not able to enter combat is very good. I wouldn't be surprised in the future if we see heavy sapphire base deck with 4 Shackling Strands. Because you put that on a vampire, you put that on a Rotpa gang, you put that on a Hierophant, on a Crusader, and even if they get them back, they're not going to be able to enter combat, and this is huge. Dingle, huge addition to the Sapphire list here. And again, we've got Deny, that can be super. Yeah, we still have a 3-cost interrupt for anything, and we even have a 4-cost interrupt that can also be played for 2 for things that cost 4 or less. And let's not kid ourselves, 90% of the card in constructed are 4 or less. So this, you know, for 2 interrupts anything. Really. So we've yet to see, you know, the full extent of what the Sapphire can do, and there's a lot here to work with to counter these decks. And if you're speaking about control, winning with control decks with a Sapphire base, you've got access to Psychic Ascension. The one edge that Sapphire had in the past was a lot of card draw, and we're getting some insane card draw with this set as well in Console of Talon. However, because we have coins in the game right now, a lot of other lists that usually don't have access to a decent amount of card draw now have access. We've seen these lists being very successful this weekend with 8 coins in them, and we'll see more of that. We'll just see more of that for sure. What I'd be very interested in is some kind of controlled Ruby Sapphire list with Dingles, Transmogrifade, Stifling Sting, a lot of card draw with the Consult of Talon, Psychic Ascension Endgame. There's a decent amount of stuff to work with here. We'll see. There's still a lot to explore. Like, you know, the obvious in an unknown meta came out with the very reliable, you know, blood decks with a ton of redundancy in terms of removal, some extremely good value troops, and very good late game cards. But there's still a ton to explore, and we're now seeing like 3 shards deck emerging with Yuzu. That's great. That's super great. I mean, I'm pumped. There's going to be so much stuff. Like, Sapphire remains to be explored for sure in this meta, and we still have, you know, Winter Moon, and she's not, you know, she's not weaker. I mean, she's still pretty good. Now that we know the enemy, you know, Winter Moon might still be on the table as well. There's a ton of stuff that can be played right now. Now that we know, you know, what the meta is, and this is really the takeaway of this weekend. Now we know what we're going to need to face, and since there's no CCS until 2 months, no one is going to hide their sweet tech from the ladder for the most part. So you're going to see these lists popping out, and keep an eye on this page here in X Tournament or xpvptools.net. It's going to be very interesting ride for set 6. My guess is that by the end of this rotation, we're going to see a lot more variety in the top lists, but you know, blood is going to be there. Like Strangle, Cheap Shot, the both enables blood against aggressive decks. They both enable Bride as just having more quality removal to play with her, and this is no wonder we're seeing blood being early at the top. And the big question is, you know, how well the Sapphire Wild Dreadling deck will adapt, because there's a lot of power in there to be working with. We're seeing a Ruby Diamond deck doing really well. There's still Angus that is in there that might just be able to adapt now that we know what we're facing. I doubt about Angus though, but we'll see. We've yet to see the last of McBumbus. There's a decent amount of stuff to explore right there, so pretty stoked here. I guess on that note, I will be in the stream tonight. There was no stream in the past 2 weeks because we're kind of working on Constricted for the team, but now that the CCS is out of the way, expect a lot of Constricted on my channel. We're going to have a ton of fun. As always, thank you so much for watching. You'll be able to find a recording in my story here, and I'll also be uploading the recording of this stream on my YouTube channel. You can find everything there. There's also my Twitter account if you want to be up to speed with all things X related. This is a nice way to do it. Follow me on Twitter and you'll get everything without having to follow a ton of people that talk about X and also other stuff. So this was CoachFliperon signing off for the night. Take care, guys. Have a great not weekend, but have a great rest of the week.